I glanced out of my window, the pale moonlight casting eerie shadows across the quiet street. It was just past midnight, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My heart raced as I recalled the unsettling encounters with my neighbor, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson had lived next door for as long as I could remember. His house, a crumbling Victorian mansion, was the stuff of neighborhood legend. Overgrown ivy enveloped the decaying structure, and most of the windows were boarded up, adding to its sinister appearance. But it wasn't the house that frightened me, it was the man who dwelled within. Mr. Anderson seldom left his home, and when he did, it was always under the cover of darkness. He had a reputation for being reclusive, but it was the glimpses I caught of him that filled me with dread. Every night, as I watched from my bedroom window, I would see him in his backyard, his tall, gaunt figure illuminated by the glow of a flickering lantern. One night, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate. I slipped out of my house and crept through the bushes that separated our properties. As I approached Mr. Anderson's yard, I could hear him muttering to himself in a low, guttural voice. His words were unintelligible, and they sent shivers down my spine. I hid behind a tree and watched in horror as he performed a bizarre ritual. He drew symbols in the dirt with a gnarled stick, his movements precise and deliberate. The air grew colder, and the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it an eerie, otherworldly sound. Suddenly, Mr. Anderson's head snapped in my direction, his eyes locking onto mine with an unsettling intensity. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It was as though he could see me, even in the darkness. Without warning, he let out a blood-curdling scream that pierced the night, and I bolted back to my house, my pulse racing. From that night on, I couldn't escape the feeling that Mr. Anderson was watching me. I would often wake up to find him standing at his bedroom window, his pale face pressed against the glass. His eyes, wide and unblinking, bore into my soul, and I would quickly draw the curtains, trying to block out his unsettling gaze. But it wasn't just his stare that unnerved me. Strange things began happening around my house. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in the most unlikely places. I would hear eerie whispers in the dead of night, and the air in my home grew thick with an oppressive sense of dread. I confided in a few of my neighbors, but they dismissed my fears, chalking them up to an overactive imagination. They had never seen Mr. Anderson's sinister side, and they couldn't comprehend the terror he instilled in me. Desperate for answers, I began researching the history of Mr. Anderson's house. I discovered that it had once belonged to a reclusive occultist who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The rumors surrounding his disappearance were chilling, and it sent a shiver down my spine. One evening, as I delved deeper into my research, I heard a soft tapping at my window. I turned, and there he was, Mr. Anderson, his face contorted into a grotesque grin. My heart pounded as he beckoned for me to come outside. Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I stepped out onto my porch. The night was still, the air thick with an eerie silence. Mr. Anderson spoke, his voice a raspy whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "You've been watching me, haven't you?" he hissed. "You've seen things you shouldn't have." I nodded, unable to speak. Fear had taken hold of me, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from his malevolent gaze. Mr. Anderson's grin widened, revealing rows of yellow, jagged teeth. "You should never have meddled in my affairs," he said. "Now, you'll join me in eternal darkness." With that, he raised his lantern high, and the symbols he had drawn in his yard began to glow with an otherworldly light. The ground trembled beneath me as a vortex of darkness opened before us, threatening to swallow me whole. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips as I was pulled into the abyss. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Mr. Anderson's sinister grin, a haunting image that would be etched into my mind for all eternity. And now, as I exist in this shadowy realm, I can only hope that my story serves as a warning to those who dare to peer into the darkness that lies behind the doors of their creepy neighbors.